We are live, as in recording, not actually live. And let me close my window, actually, before we do a full start. All right, hello, folks, and welcome to Altacast number 23, I believe it is. And that is the last Altacast for 2020.
Yeah, we'll see you. We'll see you next year, guys. See ya.
Yep.
You said that. This is. It sounded like you're wrapping up.
Yeah, so we're starting off. So this year, this Altacast, we're going to be talking about what we've done so far this year and what's kind of our hopes and plans for the future of 2021. This is the end of a workday for us, so we're a little on the tired side.
Yeah, end of the work week.
Yeah.
Of an update week. Yeah.
Before our second shift starts at 6 p.m. today.
Yeah. To start us off, let's introduce ourselves because we forget that. I'm Joel. I'm the lead programmer on a Township Tale, and Boramy here is lead designer. He designs things. I program things. Obviously, there's the rest of the team working very hard, but
yep.
We make some decisions, which is why we're the ones making videos. Apparently, I don't know.
Yeah, because of schedule's been a bit hectic in the last couple of weeks, so I considered doing something a bit grander with more of the team involved for this Altacast, but we didn't have time to plan anything, so we kind of I didn't want to spring anything on them without them knowing.
We're still quite swamped with work. Like it doesn't feel like things are easing up and work is dying down as we wrap up the year. Like everyone is still swamped with work at this stage.
Yeah.
So
and so we got one more week of work before we go on break for a couple of weeks, and then we'll be back on the 4th of January 2020. So the last day of the week of the work for us is going to be the 18th of December, and then on the 4th we'll be back. During this 2-week period, usually means that everybody kind of has to go to their families and deal with the holidays, so not everybody's going to be available to kind of work on anything that pops up with the game.
Yeah, so as you might expect, a big focus of our next week is just going to be trying to make things as stable as possible. As many of you know, the trials update got pushed back 2 weeks. And I mean, had its pros and cons, gave us more time to test, but also, gave us less time to
fix afterwards. Yeah.
Problems afterwards.
Kind of we take this chunk of time and we slot it in the other half.
But yeah, we'll be doing our best to get things stable, and we'll have a little bit of ground control over the 2 weeks. But yeah, we likely won't be in a position to do any hot fixing or anything too drastic.
Yeah. All right, so that kind of covers the present of what's going on. We do have one more Christmas rotation coming out before we go on break. So next week is we're going to be releasing a new cosmetics is still going to be going out every 2 weeks. Those are not stopped. So you can expect something to come.
I've been working very hard to backlog stuff ready for the break.
Yeah, usually December is a period where cosmetics team has to get out all the Christmas stuff as well as anything that comes in with the new year, and hopefully get a head start for January so that they can then work on future stuff. So it's probably the most hectic time of the year for cosmetics team, because that's when the most needs to get produced. Within a shorter window. But most things are pretty much ready. I caught up with the cosmetics team today, and they were doing quite well they're quite on track with stuff, so it's good to see. And yeah, so as I mentioned, today we're going to be kind of doing a bit of reflection and a bit of future outlook as well. So this year,
Well,
this
we're
year
starting with reflection.
reflection. We'll start with a reflection because the exciting bit is afterwards when we start to talk about 2021.
Yeah. Okay. Reflection. What was the first update of this year? Do you remember off the top of your head? Don't cheat. I'm gonna cheat. You're not allowed to cheat.
First update of this year.
We've got someone at the door.
First update of this year.
It's my brother. That's fine. Yeah. What do you think the first update of this year was? I'm gonna search Reddit for it.
So end of last year, we came out with. I want to say. I feel like it was like something maybe. No, televators are older than that, surely. What did we release? It's not Firebugs. So that was something like update 50 or so, roughly around there.
No.
No? Is it?
No.
Is it older than that? Like.
That's November. Oh wait, maybe it is. Oh no. Give me a second.
I think it's roughly around update 50. Maybe.
I think it's 46 or 40. Oh no, wait, that's in November. No, actually, I think you're correct. Give me a second.
It would make sense for it to be roughly around update 50, because this 2020 was our third year being out. So roughly speaking, 24 updates a year, times 2, give or take a couple, end up around 50.
Oh no, okay, 49 was in February. What about 48? 48 was in January 22nd, so I think 48 would have been the first one. And there was no 47? I don't know. There's no 47. Did we skip 47?
Did we skip 47?
Did we?
I don't know. That means that this was an update 69 after all. The next update is going to be 69 I don't know what we released. That's an interesting guessing game to see what we had come out in the past. Because
I posted 47, and it was the last update of the year. You were away for that one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So 48 was our first one.
I don't know what it is.
The last update last year, we introduced gift giving, like posting to other players, and we added fireworks.
Was that update 48 or update 47?
That was 47, and then update 48.
I don't know what 48 was, because I probably wasn't working too much on that either. If I was away in December,
I've already lost this. I had all the links open, and I already.
But 2020 was the year where we had a bit of a different flow when it came to updates, like smaller updates leading up to some of the larger ones. So the main big one that we worked on was the forest, which included a whole new environment, bunch of new enemies, a ton of kind of new wood types, and kind of this new progression line to experience. This new container for us to add stuff, which took us a while to get to. I think we released that in July, roughly.
Cool. Update. Let's do a quick overview. This is fun.
Okay.
At least for me.
Yeah.
Update 48. First update of the year introduced expansion to the tutorial, which is the new island on the tutorial, but also included a default inventory on servers. So you actually start with the grass bag
and some sticks and stuff. We used to start people with nothing.
Yeah, we used to start off with absolutely nothing. But it made sense. We set it up so that you do the tutorial, and then what you start the main game with, you're kind of is the stuff you made or gathered in the tutorial.
Yeah, it's like a rough conversion of it, yeah.
Yeah. Spriggle sounds were added in the next update.
Spriggle sounds are great.
We added this is not all the first update. This is me just glancing over the headlines. Added the in-game cosmetics store.
Oh, that's an important one, because
Yeah,
we really wanted people to be able to test out their outfits before they bought.
and presets.
Oh, presets. That's right, with the ATT show.
We had some. Yeah, that's it. That would have been pre-COVID then, because we were still in the office doing.
Yeah, that was definitely pre-COVID. Yeah,
Yeah.
we went out of office in March.
Yeah.
Man, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, we did. We made some changes to over the course of the year to some balancing things, some archery things. Oh wait, have I gone backwards?
No, I don't think so.
I'm scrolling down instead of up. I'm an idiot.
Oh, right. So cosmetics were maybe before, like
No. I would. Oh yeah, cosmetics were last. No.
Which one is it, Joel? There's like a timestamp surely somewhere.
I'm so confused.
Oh my god, I'm gonna have to bring up a list because this is getting ridiculous.
I'm so confused. Where did 48
What are you
go?
looking at? What are you using?
Oh yeah, no. I am going the right way. I'm going the right way. I'm crazy. Okay. Yeah, we added like diggables in the caves, made changes to arrows and stuff. I don't know. We released a forest or something and added live. That was something that was like, it's not a huge thing because it doesn't affect most players, but it was a long time coming.
Yeah, it's
I
been
think
asked a lot by some peculiar individuals. Or
we
particular individuals.
we got a request, pretty much one of the first people to play a Township Tale. I think top 100, first 100 people.
Yeah, for sure.
Someone was requesting live, and I said I'd look into it, and it took me this long.
I think you can say who that is. Like, there's no reason not to.
Yeah. So many of you know of Rage Sack. Does a lot of like Beat Saber streaming as well.
Yeah.
And
With the Maul Sabers.
very early on requested live, and in the end it was Sol who pushed it over the line. So big thanks to Sol for that. But yeah, it took us a while to get that one through. Yeah, a couple. At the end of the day, the focus was obviously on the forest, but it's interesting to see, like, sometimes we look back a year ago and it feels like it was ages and ages ago, but sometimes it feels like it was like 2 updates ago. In this case, it feels more on the long-term side of things to me than the short-term. Like, it feels like it was a long time ago that we added some of these things. But
yeah,
anyway.
arrow deviation and hunger changes were pretty huge. So some things kind of setting up for us to build out more content and add a bit more.
The climbing tower came out.
Yeah, well, yeah, that still feels fairly fresh. Because that was like the last major thing before the trials came out. So that kind of wraps up this year. Like, it's been a good batch of updates, I think. I think going into next year, we kind of want to tackle some of the other major features that people have been kind of asking for. Joel and I are going to start working on housing again. So Joel was helping us out wrap up trials. And he's still helping us fix some of the bugs involved with it. But pretty soon, like I'm at least going to be starting going into housing fairly soon. I don't know what Joel's schedule looks like for next week, but it's going to be interesting to finally get our teeth sunk into that big beast that people have been waiting for.
I love sinking my teeth into things.
And yeah, so the so next year, here are some of the key goals. We kind of want to bring around some of the optimizations that have been worked on for a while. We're not sure yet. We're still investigating it a lot and kind of dipping our toes into updating our version of Unity.
Yeah.
It's something that is always kind of risky. Like in the past, it's always been risky. Right now, it feels slightly safer just from my experience, but we're skeptical because we've got those bad experiences in the past.
Yeah,
So it's like
2017 to 18 was a nightmare, but it seems like 18 to 19 is a bit
it's a bit
less.
smoother. So we just need to kind of confirm that, and that should provide uh, some good benefits across the board, I think, because we're quite a ways behind in terms of Unity versions.
I
Um,
think overall, uh, everything might change, but overall, my perspective of 21 is a focus on getting house building over the line and then overall stability. And um, once stability is kind of there, like obviously as people are freed up, as designers and artists are freed up, maybe we can work on bits of content. But for the most part, I think the focus will be on trying to bring things into quite a stable state.
yeah,
Obviously, there'll be. I don't think Boramy is going to be able to help himself, but put in new tidbits of things here and there. Like, and I think
yeah.
I think that's very important. But yeah, house building is definitely the number one focus, and then
Yeah,
I think once house building is in, it it really sets up, no pun intended, the foundation for a lot of other things. Um, because we've kind of got that long term goal built into the game. And I think once that's done and things are overall a bit more stable, we can start setting our eyes on like more world expansion and stuff like that.
yeah.
But
I think an important part of house building is that it gives players this extra level of permanence in the world and their belonging in it. And that's going to make everyone feel a lot more comfortable with, the stuff that they've gathered, being able to store it somewhere safe, having some place that they can go back to and upgrade, maybe purely cosmetically if they want to, or maybe functionally if that's what they're kind of going for. Uh, it really hones in the social aspects because that's kind of the cultural significance of a house in all of humanity is and all creatures is that this is where you make friends. It's where you kind of have your personal family, so to speak. Your circle of your social circle is where it all takes place. And as part of the Township Tale being all about living in this town, that's a really important part.
yeah. Otherwise, it'd just be a shit tale.
And so, whilst there's all that stuff happening on like the homey side, Joel's right. I'm probably not going to be able to hold myself back from trying to explore a bit of the adventure side further. There's more kind of like AI R&D stuff that I've dabbled in that I want to kind of carry through, and I think in between a lot of these or throughout these larger tasks, we'll probably have time to work that in a bit.
Yeah.
I know that currently all of our enemies in the game, for example, are they're kind of set creatures that belong in exactly the place that they are. They're not really known for traveling or being featured in various places. So something that Joel and I've always kind of wanted was an enemy that we can have almost anywhere because they have reasons to be there, the same reason that you do.
To me, it's the best equivalent is like the goblins in D&D or the orcs in Lord of the Rings. It's like that. It's the enemy that pops up everywhere rather than being.
Okay, we're back. Sorry about that, folks. Timo was just calling me to say nothing. Okay, so we were talking about the generic enemy and goblins and orcs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was just saying, being able to throw in kind of a staple that can appear all around the place. Like Go-Terras don't make sense to pop up in town or around
the caves
the
or
wild.
something. Yeah.
Like it makes sense for them to to be in the. I think a big part of it is sentience. When we see, or theme, I guess, when we see the theme of a tree creature or a rock creature, it obviously limits its potential scope. But when you see something that isn't as directly tied to a particular theme, it becomes a bit more flexible to throw around the place.
Yeah. So you for example, people who have done the combat trials at this point will have seen the role of Turobatas in them, and that they don't entirely fit the narrative of the environment that they're in. There could be another enemy that does that a bit better, but it is a very thematic place, and so you expect a very thematic enemy. But any and like Joel mentioned, any kind of creature that has sentience, I guess, needs to be exploring various locations as well, and
has the intelligence to live outside of their initial natural habitat.
Yeah. So it's like this elevated level of required survival and expansion, and so that's kind of what I'm looking forward to a bit with 2021 is providing an enemy that is a bit smarter, and we'll see how that kind of plays out. So those are the three major things, I guess: optimizations, housing, and then a bit more of the combat and adventure side. There's a lot more underlying those things. There are housing and the new combat stuff have a lot of underlying systems that will be coming through. So don't think that it's just going to be like, oh, now you can build, like you can use what you currently know to build a house. We'll be introducing some new mechanics as well that fit in.
Yeah, we've got a fair few. And then chances are, just like the way things go, if the team grows, for instance, like hopefully we'll have a bit of team growth next year, and then hopefully we'll have more hands on deck to work on features. Like personally, I would love to have a bit more of a focus on getting some of our audio tech that we've had planned off the ground and running next year. Whether it will happen is, again, like there's lots of factors involved. I think I like to think that as a team, we've been a lot more conservative with our planning for next year than we were in 2019 planning for 2020. Like, I think we were very optimistic with our planning going across there. Whereas this time, I think we've been a bit more conservative. Which optimistic me hopes that our conservativeness will result in more stuff happening than we've got planned. But we'll see that.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of a nicer position to be in, because like this year it's been absolutely non-stop. Like working on forests come out. We kind of want to do more with forests, but we also we want to get started on house building. We also need to get trials over the line. Like there's just so much stuff packed in. Whereas I look forward to, hopefully after houses, maybe things can slow down a bit and give us time to focus on kind of other small to medium-sized features as well. But we'll see how that goes.
I think like as long as we can provide a really good experience for housing and we let that be our main focus, I think it'll pave the way for us to feel comfortable with future things. Because I think like that is one of the everlasting problems that players are facing. It's the storage issue. Housing is going to play a pretty big role in that.
We haven't even bought house building, and we've got some like clicking to build houses tests tech, but nothing in VR. We only have one feature in VR, which is basically the ability for us to kind of pick up beams. And Boramy and I already had a fair bit of fun with that. Like just the simple things are pretty cool. There's lots of little things that I think will build up to be quite an exciting experience. And I'm not going to give spoilers as to what those other things are. And some of those things we might be kind of discovering and creating on the way. But we've got lots of small things that will build up to house building as you know it. So that's pretty exciting.
A slightly different approach I think that we're going to be trying to take next year is we're going to be breaking down the process of our, particularly for house building. So when we were working on Forest, a lot of people were asking us to release a version of it for the supporter branch. But because the Forest was just this kind of like big set piece entity type of thing, there wasn't really a great way for us to do that in a kind of a fun, constructive way. With housing, though, we can, because there will be so many steps and processes, we can break that down into something that people can experience a bit before it comes out to the main game. So part of our goals for that is to release, is for us to find, I guess, these like smaller game loops that are part of house building, and create a like a supporter preview branch like we have in the past for Turabatas and for climbing. That people can experience, so that at least they get to see a bit of the progress, because it is going to be, again, a fairly huge feature that may take some time to roll out. And on top of that, us breaking down this feature into all these smaller components that goes into a bit of a live environment, lets us test it with people.
And hopefully make sure things are stable.
And it should kind of make things more stable, So, and don't worry, that doesn't mean that like once housing comes out, that you'll know everything about it, or that you won't be amazed by what's gonna come. There's still, I guess, an element of like grandeur that's gonna get released with housing.
To us, some features fall into what we consider like very spoilerish material. Like if we were to have showed screenshots of the third trial to supporters, like lots of internal screenshots and like the front of it and blah blah blah, I think people would have been like, whoa, like we know what to expect when they go down there, but because we kind of allured to stuff, we never actually showed anything. It has a bit more of that grand experience, but other features just don't. It's not about the visuals or necessarily the vibe of seeing it for the first time. It's about the enjoyment of the creative output, I guess. So we could, like, if we added a new blade into the game or a new attachment, for instance, I don't think screenshotting that would ruin it for people. In fact, I think it would get people excited, and then it's the things they can do with that makes it exciting. Not simply seeing it. Whereas with stuff like the trials, and the Forest, a big part of it is seeing and experiencing. So we didn't want to ruin too much of that along the way.
So that's like, I'm looking forward to doing that, because it means that we can. It's like a mini level design exercise of kind of creating this, like the little preview area for supporters, and that lets us kind of experiment a bit with a different format to the game that people might be used to. And so like hopefully next year we'll have more of this kind of behavior with updates, because again it makes more sense for us to de-risk things. Especially as we work on larger and larger things, and to make them more and more stable. It's just it's the approach. So that's the 2021 approach for a Township Tale, is to break things down in fun, compartmentalized ways, and see that come through to the main game in a hopefully more polished manner.
And less risky.
Because so I mean, we say that like you guys, the community, have been super patient with all of the trials and tribulations that we've come across. But it's still not a super pleasant experience to have to go through that. Like
the trials.
the trials release was like rough and just sweat-inducing and like terrifying for us. Like all of our legacy servers were just constantly failing to generate caves. Still kind of are at this point. We're working on fixing that. So. Thanks again for your patience. But like other things, like people dying randomly and the locomotion issues, everyone's really understanding. But it's like we still don't want to do that to you.
we still feel bad, and some of you quite quite fairly feel very frustrated when you randomly die and lose all your stuff. Like,
Yeah,
and we get that. So
yeah,
obviously, stability is
yeah. There's lots
um,
of yeah. There's lots to build up essentially, like the because it's like for most players of the Township Tale are from the U.S. and update times, especially when they drag onto a bit later, is becomes very late for most of the U.S. So people are staying up quite late, chugging on the epic monster to stay around, and then we like we have a rough update and people can't experience what they stayed up for. It's like as understanding as you can be, you're still tired as shit and you didn't get to do what you wanted to do that night. So uh, we're gonna try and be better at that coming next year.
yeah. Part of like obviously a big part of this is our own internal processes and working out how to do things well. I think we've mentioned in the past, maybe I don't know, but a lot of our builds in the past have been manually sort of run on one of our computers, and over the past year we've had that move to a cloud computer, which has had hiccups, and Timo has been fighting with this monster to get that live. But internally, the point is we're trying to work out how we can also be improving our processes and our tools to make sure that this is smoother and
Yeah,
and better. Ultimately, like a recurring thing we hear a lot of people in the community say, and we thank you for this, is like encouraging people to understand that things are still early days. Like the game is still pre-alpha, um, but obviously we need to like that's we love that players have that attitude, but we internally need to make sure we don't have that attitude. We need to try and be moving towards the point where things are as polished and as smooth as you would expect from a not pre-alpha game. So um, hopefully 2021 will see a fair bit of that. And if it doesn't, then you can blame Timo, I guess. Boramy is just tuned out. Boramy's.
yeah. Sorry, I have to. I realized that that's my sister's Christmas tree, and if she comes home today and sees that I stole it, she'll either get mad or she'll barge in here and then end up on the Altacast where she doesn't want to be. So I'm just gonna let her know before she gets home. Yeah, Joel's got a much bigger tree than I do.
This is
I'm not much of a Christmas person.
I'm not either.
Did you decorate your tree?
No, it wasn't me. It was Emma.
You need to fill for time.
I
I'd like to
dragged it.
spill.
I dragged it in here with some help from my brother's girlfriend because it's too big. It's no one should have a tree this large in their house. I would argue no one should have a tree in their house.
Yeah,
Wow.
this is not a real tree.
Trees are for the outdoors. I don't think this is real. This is plastic.
All right, sorry about that. All right.
What are we doing? What are we doing? Questions? Are we doing
Yeah,
Q&A?
like we're a little like I figured this one's okay to be a bit longer. So if there's anything else you want to talk about for next year, we can. Like people are gonna
I
be
don't
without
know.
an Altacast for like another month. So
I'm kind of, I just, yeah, I'm excited for next year. Mainly, I'm excited to get back on house building. I'm excited for um, a lot of the research and development that Victor and Serena have been doing for the past year. Um, Hopefully, because they're working on incorporating some of that stuff into
yeah,
the main version of the game, and I'm kind of excited. It's been a very interesting year for us to have a bit of this split in the team where we put people on long-term R&D
Yeah.
and there's like it's a complicated situation in terms of incorporating that sort of stuff back in, but I'm excited to see where that sort of stuff leads us in 2021.
Yep.
And I think, as Boramy mentioned, one of those short-term things is Victor looking into updating our Unity, which unlocks potential for new features as well. There's some things that we physically cannot do in the current version of Unity, which we will in 2019, which is
Unity 2019 when we do it in 2021.
when we do it in 2021.
Do you have specifics that you want to mention?
Sure, I was just going to say, like, we can cut holes in terrain.
Yeah, that's the one that I was leading you to.
Which very well may not mean anything in the short term, but like theoretically, one of the things Boramy and I talked about while working on the forest was how cool it would be to have a tunnel from one path to another in the forest, but it just physically was not possible using the terrain technology in Unity 2018.
Like we technically have the capability to make it look like there's a hole, like there's just this gap, but stuff like I think physics collisions and things like that won't behave with it. So that's obviously with our game is a super important part that we needed to have, and now it's going to be native to our engine, which is great.
Very nice. Yep. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'm excited to work on house building. Yeah. I'm excited to get back on it. The little I've done on it so far has been quite enjoyable and exciting because it's very different to working on the forest, because the forest was a lot of like programming and then run it, generate it, and be like, oh, okay, got to tweak these numbers, got to do this, got to whatever, and then run it again. And it was not so much an interactive experience as a progression experience. When Boramy came in at the end and added stuff like the mine shafts, there was a bit more interaction, but for the most part, the significant part of development was not interactive, whereas house building is the complete opposite. It's just
all interactive.
It's 100% interactive.
Like a lot of the logic of like where you can build walls and stuff like that, we have foundations for, like we kind of have the underlying structural code for that. So now it's kind of like how we interact with the pieces, and then some of the later stages of house building as well we still need to get into, but because we spent a lot of time on forest with like rivers and waterfalls. That was a big one that we were like, there's all these artifacts with like these pixels, like these vertices getting pulled up all over the place. How can we just slam it down and just keep those verts down from just spiking all over the place? So and that again was just a purely like cosmetic kind of work that we were doing, was like this waterfall needs to look like a waterfall. How do we get it to do that?
Right now it looks like a piece of wall that's blue. And so there's quite an interesting difference there. I'm looking forward to getting to house building because I've been eager to have another pass at some of the textures and stuff that we use, and I look forward to making it as flexible and as ambitious as the buildings that we've been drawing and painting, and bring it to a vision so that what you're building doesn't, hopefully, it's a bit early to say, but hopefully doesn't just look like this kind of like hyper angular shape, but that you can create something that feels like it's properly architectured and feels like real life. And there's also a whole bunch of interactions that'll be interesting with the house building process. Some simple things to sort of start off is like within our houses we want furniture, we want like seats to sit on, and we want, I don't know, bookcases you can start putting trinkets on. Like right now putting trinkets in the game wouldn't make a huge amount of sense because there's no like trophy case. Like what Boramy has on his bookshelf behind him wouldn't make sense if he lived in a purely communal area because someone else could just take it and ruin it or whatever. But because he's got his
Especially
own
that
space,
shelf.
he can start showing off his stuff. And I think once houses are out, like a simple example is the smelter upgrades for minor spoilers, where you can get a smelter upgrade, but once you've got one, getting new ones doesn't really do anything. But it would be cool to be able to have a shelf that shows off like you you've got
like a trophy.
the upgrade for your house as well. And then personally, I love the idea of all sorts of little trophies and trinkets, which can be collected in maybe quite difficult or expensive ways, but just kind of show off a little bit of personality. Like maybe you had to spend 100 gold ingots to make this somehow, and it's quite difficult to attain or make or whatever. And it's just, you don't need it, but like it's cool to show off sort of thing. And I think some of those sorts of things, furniture, as mentioned, like a lot can go into houses. I don't want to say too much, but also a lot hasn't been thoroughly fleshed out in design yet because we just know the potential. We just know, like, it's more of a, like, it's an unspoken
I mean,
thing.
like, it's kind of like we know that we can have 1,000 ideas about where that can go, but we just need to kind of reach the, like, go a bit further with the stuff before.
Like we've got kegs in the
tavern building,
cooking building, in the tavern building. Like the idea of making, you could make a house and you could just have heaps of kegs full of 50 different drinks, and then make a bar or something and invite your friends over. Like cool ideas like that. Like that's what I'm excited for, and that's what I envision house building unlocking. So anyway,
all right. So I think that's, well, like, we would essentially just talking about house building, how excited we are to get back into it. Like, we will have an official house building Altacast, so don't worry if you've got more questions about it. It's probably like the most asked thing ever in the Q&A. So be sure to check out previous Q&As because we have answered some of those before. And then we're going to take a quick break, and then Joel and I are going to start answering questions. All right, see you in a bit. All right, and welcome back to the Q&A for our Altacast. I guarded my tree so that I don't feel the wrath of my family, and so that it doesn't shed plastic crap all over my floor.
Christmas is a bad time anyway. I spilled cherry on my shirt. It's probably not gonna come out.
It's very expensive looking gray shirt. Is that Supreme?
This it already has holes in it actually. This I bought this at a suit store.
A suit store.
When you go at the back of the shop, there's like a section for fancy people like me.
They put everything in a big green bin, like a big green box, out in the street. It's very underground, very grungy.
It was actually hanging over the top of one of the doors in the change room, so I'm not sure.
You're gonna ask the guy that was showering there, but you just took
it. Okay, Q&A time.
Yeah.
Question number 1: Are flying mounts likely?
It's hard to say. It's quite a very powerful ability to have, to be able to fly. The way that flying mounts let characters fly in general MMOs. Unsure as of yet. Like, it may be a very different implementation of flying than what you might be used to if we do have flying mounts. It's a very
flying is a
3D traversal like that's very tricky.
The range of what flying mounts could mean could be like stationary mounts like that move but they hover, or it could mean like you're soaring down and you pull up on the reins and the eagle glides upwards and then you barrel roll.
You're like soaring and just like swooping down. Like we generally prefer things that swoop because that's what flying means to us when we think about it. The hovering enemy to us is just kind of like animation trickery that's kind of dumb.
Um, I think personally, I think it would be awesome. There's just some very, very huge concerns and implications that come along with it that more as developers and designers we need to assess. Like, yes, it's a cool idea, but will it break any form of our world building or design? Will it um, make other aspects of the game redundant or completely unbalanced? Will it let you move so fast that the world physically can't load
Yeah.
fast enough to accommodate for it? Like there's lots of challenges to do with it. And I think at the stage we're at, we're so many steps away from that
Yeah.
I think we'll have a better understanding once we've implemented land mounts, once we've implemented, like, I would love mine carts in the game, for instance. Once we've got those sorts of things
Underwater mounts.
done, and flying enemies, even. We don't even have flying enemies.
Yep.
Once we've covered those sorts of things, maybe we'll be in a better position to make judgments about anything.
About the technical feasibility of flying mounts. Yeah.
Do you think the archer's arrow bag skill can be changed to also work on the quiver?
Perhaps. It's it's possible. We've got some other ideas on how that can work. Where maybe it's a bit more, where the crafting quiver process might make it enabled to do that rather than being a native skill. But potentially, but not that soon.
Have you considered flintlock firearms? Like you could craft gunpowder from nitrates and coal and shoot iron bullets.
We have. It's a bit of a like we've thought about it. It's quite a big leap. We don't find the interaction of firearms to be that interesting in VR. Like it's kind of just this point and shoot mechanic, which is not terribly like it's less fun. Like it's less fun than than it sounds. Yeah, like slingshots and bows and crossbows are way cooler because they require like cranking and like the ammunition type and thematically fits a bit better. Bullets are too powerful as like historically technologically speaking. Well, arrows and swords have killed a lot, but it's like it's a very unfair, like from the effort to output requirement is quite unfair with firearms, so it's not a terribly fun to be on either side of the equation when it comes down to it.
I think personally, I like being a very against this idea person. Not that I'm the one calling the shots, but being against this idea, I feel like people who are in the same ballpark of mentality as me, I think, like, to me, it's a minority who wants flintlock firearms, and it can like damage the experience for people who are actually against it. Like if it doesn't thematically fit, it can like damage the vibe of it. It's like playing a sci-fi game and there's a pirate ship in there. Like it doesn't like an old school style pirate ship. Like it breaks the immersion sort of deal. Except medieval fantasy world and then guns exist. But yeah, I do think it's a contentious point. So there's definitely people on all sides.
Yeah, like I just think there's other forms of ranged combat that we're gonna explore before we look into firearms.
I think we've done this one before, but if we haven't, here we go. Ideas on covering your mouth with a hand in areas that are toxic and hurt you over time without covering your mouth.
Yeah, like I think we did answer this. Part of the issue is just crowding this interaction space around your character. It makes it a bit tough. We'll see, but it's again like it's kind of the similar deal as as like trying to dock things when there's lots of overlapping things or trying to pick up things. The whole contextual aspect of it can get a bit inaccurate. So it's a tough one.
This question is going to get Boramy too excited. If swimming ever happens, how do you feel about underwater structures?
Well, why else would we have swimming if we didn't have underwater structures?
Yes, we do have plans to do swimming. No, not anytime soon. Yes, we'll make sure we make good use of that.
We'll see how soon.
Boramy wants swimming like
Yeah. I have lots of
done.
like there's lots of production reasons why I think it should happen earlier, but it's something that we haven't scheduled in, so by definition it gets shafted a bit in terms of when it can happen.
Dear Boramy and Joel, or whoever else may be here, some phrases like pulling your leg or kicking and screaming wouldn't work with our avatars. So does the world of A Township Tale have any colloquialisms or idiomatic expressions that are unique to the world? Any you can share? Also, hi Boramy and Joel, or whoever else may be here. Sincerely, Mantax.
Francis says hi, Mantax. No, we don't have any idiomatic expressions designed for our game. As far as like the no leg thing, whilst it's like a bit of a meme / a joke in the Township Tale, we kind of half pretend that they do have legs, like in all truthfulness.
Noises, for goodness sake.
and we have done concept art of them with legs and stuff like that before, but it's no, I have not thought about idiomatic idioms for Township Tale. So no creative answers there.
Cool. Okay. So we can kick the bucket. He's reading the next question. He's moved on.
Yeah, I don't have anything for the.
We've already answered this question, so I'll answer it quickly. Thoughts on climbing gear? Something we do want to explore at some stage. More bow attachments. Something we do want to explore at some stage, but
this person is probably thinking about scopes and stuff like that. Scopes that work and are like physically accurate are very, very difficult. It's a very precise kind of like science to it, which like if we were to add like a scope in our game, even if it was pointing in the forward direction that the arrow shoots at, it wouldn't be accurate to you.
I think I'd be more excited for some form of magical attachments to a bow, like some sort of enchantments where I can
enchantments or
something
like functional attachments. I think are like mechanical function attachments are more difficult.
Yeah. Will Magic have specific spells pre-made for players to cast, or will we have to put together our own spells? So the question, I presume, stems from games which let you assemble spells in some sense, like they give them an element like fire and give it it's like a forking fireball or a big fireball.
This will probably be we'll probably have a bit of a mix of both, and there's like the implementation side of this is quite exciting for us when we think about it. So we're gonna stay a bit hush on how we expect it. If you have more questions about Magic, feel free to hit up the Magic Altacast and see what our thoughts are, because they haven't changed too much since then.
Yeah, it's worth reiterating from that one is we do plan to have multiple different types of Magic, so it could very well be that one form of Magic is quite rigid in its inputs and outputs, and a big benefit of that is it gives us more creative control over each spell or whatever. whereas other magic types might have a bit more of that customization and build your own aspect. The downside to those systems, though, is you'll notice they're generally a fair bit more generic at the end of the day, because they need to have pieces that can all work together, and they end up with, here's a fireball that bounces, here's a fireball that splits off, here's a fireball that blah blah blah, and there's the ice version of each of those and the electric version, and each individual spell loses its like personal charm because people kind of just see how it was assembled more than get excited for the spell itself. So there's pros and cons to both, and yeah, different magics could have both. But this question was asked 2 months ago, so things have changed a little bit since then. But the question is, any plans for instance-based dungeons and world bosses?
I feel like we answered this.
Maybe we've answered this. I mean, the trials have just come out, which are dungeon-ish experiences.
And so, no, they're not instanced.
And no, they're not instanced. Instancing is something that we're generally avoiding. It's not to say we've blacklisted the idea entirely, but as far as we can kind of make the world work in a physical, meaningful way, we're going to continue to try and do that, because the goal is to build a world, not to build a weird linked up.
It's like we're trying to build a world. We're not trying to build like a kind of like a theme park, I guess, where you enter like these gates and doorways to go to the experience. It's like instancing is a bit of a like I guess almost like archaic method of kind of handling like large player worlds. And so like but personally for us, kind of doing something seamlessly is more fun and more.
To us, it's exciting to be able to walk from location A to B.
Yeah.
As simple as that. To be able to see if you go high enough, or if you like, you can always see where you were 2 minutes ago. Like you can visually see that. Whereas as soon as you instance, like you'll notice in games with instancing, there's all sorts of ways to prevent you from looking back to where you were 2 seconds ago, because it doesn't exist. It's not loaded, and it can be quite immersion breaking, even if you're not aware of it. Like it
I mean,
kind of
but it introduces a lot of meta concept as well. Like if we're in a party and then I'm going into this dungeon, I have to wait for you to come through, and then we kind of sit through this loading screen together. It breaks up the feeling of experiencing and seamlessness of everything. It's
worth noting, this isn't us hating on every game with instancing. I do think many games suit instancing very well. If I made a chess app, it would have instanced games. You wouldn't be in one huge world with a trillion chessboards to play people. That would be pretty cool. But like instancing makes sense in a lot of games, just from our philosophy of this open world. This particular game, it just doesn't fit as well. In terms of bosses, which is the other part of that question, we do plan to have bosses.
Yeah.
This question's about character profiles, presumably inventories more than anything, or just your levels and skills and stuff. Will character profiles always be on one server, or will there eventually be a global profile? It goes on to talk about settings and stuff.
No, we probably won't be allowing players to have a character that they bring across servers. The economy of individual servers is quite important, and because of the different rule sets and the different kind of spawning liberties that private servers have, we don't want someone who's another server who has very hardcore PvP mechanics with like a, kind of this custom like progression difficulty that they've set up to suddenly have
Yeah.
someone who's maxed out on a very easy world just going in and disrupting the balance of what they've kind of been building up.
The thought that people here are probably having is something like they've built up their character on US and want to change server to a private server. But the implications that this would also suggest is that that person could go to their own private server, spawn in everything for themselves, and then go to other servers.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think this refers specifically to just being able to continue their character when their usual server is not, when they don't want to go on their usual server because of people there.
yeah.
Um,
I think over time there might be people who own two servers and want some level of continuation between the players on both those two servers, but it's not something we want to worry about at this stage because it's quite a niche situation, but there's also ways they can kind of work around it at this stage. Like people, we already see some servers will say if you're coming from US2, we'll spawn in stuff for you. And I can imagine maybe there's other commands or things in the future that might help accommodate for niche situations, but it doesn't fit our overall vanilla vision. Yes, good question. Is it possible that the camera will get some additions like a follow mode, so you can use it as a third-person camera? And they also want some tweaks to the way holding a camera works.
yeah, I think the follow mode on camera is very possible. It's something that when we added Live, I've been really keen to see is kind of this third-person view of characters, and yes, I would like for us to improve the way cameras are held and behave, and
I want two hands to
do what two hands is supposed to.
control from positions, not from the rotations of my hands. But yeah, third-person camera footage would be awesome. There were lots of times I was shooting some footage for the trials, and there were lots of times I was walking up to do something like the GIF of us opening the door, but it started hapticking because I was too far away from the camera. So we then had to redo that after moving the camera closer. So there's just lots of little quality of life things that I think we can do to help people create content, like record footage and stuff for the game.
Yeah.
How much effort would it be to add support for Linux? I honestly could not tell you, but I am unaware of how big the demand for Linux is. So at this stage, my understanding is the amount of effort does not balance out with the amount of like people who will actually benefit from that sort of decision. Just buy a Windows PC. I don't know. I really honestly could not answer that. We've answered this question before as well. Chances of us adding more detailed cooking. This one's talking about cutting up tomato into slices. To address specifically this bit, I may as well address a unique bit each time these sorts of questions pop up. The smaller the object, the more finicky it gets. There's a reason we did tomato halves or quarters rather than slices. And even then, our tomato halves are quite small objects. And it can just get a bit finicky with the physics of things and also just picking up and dealing with those objects. Obviously, as players, we kind of open and close our hands. We don't pick up, like if there's a pencil in game, you would, what did I just unplug? Something unplugged. A pencil in game, you would you would grab and your character would go to hold it properly. You're not dealing with a pencil, and so as soon as you're dealing with small objects, it's a little bit odd. Which is why our blueberries are quite large as well. So, but we'll have more. To answer the first bit of the question, we'll have more cooking things. I can't promise it'll involve super small slicing of objects though.
Yeah.
I'm sure that Eden before asking the next question. Can we set traps or sabotage houses? Don't have an answer to that. Maybe Boramy does.
I do think we answered that one as well last time. I don't know why we have so many questions that. Thing is, the problem is I read a lot of the questions. We don't answer all of them in the Altacast, but in my head I've answered them. So sometimes my memory gets blurred as to whether or not we did.
Traps is an interesting thing. I don't think you'll be able to damage someone else's house necessarily. Though. Yeah. Maybe there'll be server settings for that, but vanilla default settings, quite unlikely that you'll be tearing
First version of house release also won't have any kind of damaging or raiding possibilities for houses. That's something that primary objective is to make houses as safe as possible, and then we'll look into further gameplay implications from that with anybody who wants to be a thief when we get to that side of things.
This question about more in-depth explanation of how the work on optimizations are going. Maybe that's something we can do next year. At this stage, it's...
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about it in the first half of the Altacast.
Yeah, at this stage, Victor and Serena are merging stuff in, and then it's going to be us looking at which tech we can actually start applying, and we'll hopefully have a better idea of where we're at once Victor and Serena have finished merging. But yeah, for the 1 year of Altacast, you could do a live stream and answer questions live.
When was the first Altacast, actually?
I don't know.
Let me have a
what Altacast number did you say this was?
This is 23, I think. So...
Surely the first one was more than a year ago now. You need to update the Altacast.
Oh yeah, there's some missing. Oh no, this is 24. No, we've definitely... Next Altacast might be the 1 year anniversary, technically speaking.
No, the first one... Oh, well, the first one was October 25.
Oh yeah, so we missed it.
Yeah, we missed it. But, so the answer is no.
And that one... And, because, I don't know if you realized, but we did skip an Altacast. Because we were too busy to do it for the last one. So that one would have been technically the anniversary Altacast. So sorry, folks, that we missed our own birthday. We will, I don't know. Maybe we'll find time to do it at some point this year. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see what we're doing in our break. Maybe Joel and I will be able to spare a couple hours to do a live stream. This is literally the first time I'm bringing it up, so I'm not expecting anything. So I'll talk to Joel about it later. Yeah, I don't even know if I'm probably gonna be too busy as well. Yes.
We'll see. I'm planning on working on Township Tale my whole holiday. So.
Okay, here's a question that I'm gonna try and read in the way it was written, and see if I can pull it off without taking a breath. Can you add demi-humans and elves, and please do events like a new story added in this game, like when the new update comes out, add in the description or storyline that there's a private mission on each kingdom with the same goal to kill the 13 demon generals as bosses and the demon lord. Please make it that interesting, even though it's a lot, but please, if you can, your game can be world's #1 VR MMORPG. Please, I would also like if you could tell a tech company to make VR headsets with a mic to chant the spells that is within their magical attributes and the suit to feel some of the pain, to know your weak spots. All right. Um, a lot of enthusiasm in that question. I'd appreciate some punctuation, but uh, it does bring about some interesting topics that people haven't asked before, and that's like the uh, like I know a lot of games do like when they release a new update, they kind of give like this pretext and this about like the people of like this new dungeon or boss that they've released to kind of like invigorate people. The reason we don't do that is because we don't like to kind of expose story in that kind of way by just writing text about like straight up specific things. We prefer that you go there and then you kind of decipher things along with the way that you've learned the story of the rest of the game. Um, the I was using that question for reference.
I marked it done. I can bring the question back.
Um,
Uh,
the I'm trying to go off memory now.
mark it's done.
The other, gosh, there was another
There was something
point
about demons, killing demons, and
Yeah,
something about a tech company making headsets for spell microphones and bodysuits for weak spots.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like it's a there are a lot of companies working on that, so I don't think we have to tell anybody to do it. Uh, it's a fragmented part of the VR industry of like this haptic hardware. So um, until we have like tons of disposable funds, we're not going to invest our own money into pursuing those things. That's why we don't like, we don't support like hip trackers or foot trackers or other forms of locomotion because it's not the stock standard, and we don't have time to try and support every different piece of experimental hardware that comes out. As far as the Demon Lord questions, we have our own story that eventually you'll get to experience when we progress further into development.
Not related to the game, comma. When will Joel get a new microphone? I've got a new one coming in the mail. Cost me like $30. And we'll see if it's better than my $120 microphone. We'll see.
Well, your $120 microphone is more like a $120 webcam with a microphone in it.
With a $0 microphone on it.
Yeah.
But the one I'm getting is like a knockoffy one, but it's apparently pretty good. So we'll see. I'm also getting some acoustic stuff. Why? I don't know. Is it really? Is my audio really that bad?
It's a little echoey. It's not as good as this.
Well, Boramy, it's worth noting I paid for this webcam with my own dollars. Boramy stole the microphone from work. So if I had stolen it from work, I would sound like Boramy, right?
If you stole it from work, then you'd have to do all the sound effects for a Township Tale rather than me. Do you want to do that? Do you want to
just... Sign me up. Anyway, how many more questions do we want to do?
Let's do one more each, and then we'll be down for time.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. You pick one.
No, you pick first.
Okay, I'll pick mine. With the current scale of the map in mind, do you have any plans for other towns/villages besides bandit camps that are either lootable or livable? An outpost to stop at while near the tower would be great. Yep, there's tons of plans for other structural elements. The reason we're not adding those is because we want to add the creatures that reside there along with it, so that it's not just completely empty, and so that there's a bit of more of an experience for you to have there. That kind of ties in with some of the enemy experiments that I've got to carry through, so that we can start to do that more and more, and that will come with its own form of loot, which will again play will let you craft more and more things and expand your township. Yep.
I just read through all the questions. There's a couple of house building ones which I'm thinking maybe we'll leave till next time. Yep. And then I was kind of like, well, I'm not sure which question to answer, because this is tricky. Here's a question. I don't even know what the answer is. When will the next Outer Olympics happen? And will it include hitting wood the farthest with an axe, furthest with an axe like a golf club? I saw some guys doing that, and it was pretty epic how far they were able to shoot it off the cliff near the televator.
The Township Games, maybe next year. I think a good time slash season for us to do it is in our winter time, which is like May or like June, July, August, because it's nice and cold, and so we can all feel quite comfortable in VR. Because the Township Games do take a while to record and to set up and to play. So
I've got some ideas though.
You've got some ideas? Okay.
Yeah, like you can line up. You can do a shooting range with fireworks. You line up dynamite, and you have to try and shoot one of the dynamite, and each dynamite can have a score associated with it. So you've got to try and aim and hit and set off dynamite.
Yeah.
And
there's actually some new items that we can play around with for the like having a slingshot is quite good. Like we can kind of play like a ball toss with the hanging buckets. Like we can organize that
we
pretty
can
well.
do cooperative things. Someone has to shoot a schmeechie out of a slingshot, and then someone else on the other end has to catch it with a net.
Net-based games would be great.
Sorry?
We can have a game where you pretty much like this item gets dispensed, and you have to collect it with the net and bring it back to your side of like the court, and that's 1 point for you. And there's like a time. It's kind of like a just like a hoard, like hoarding like skulls in Halo or something like that, where you just gather stuff, put it in your bin, but then people are invading your bin, so you've got to take items back.
Oh yeah.
Pretty much, we're just gonna go through the Fall Guys mini games list, and we're gonna try and recreate it in Township Tale.
I was gonna say that's just like pull out of youth games for youth groups textbook.
And we can do all of those like summer camp games that people love to cringe at on the internet. All right.
Record. Oh, I was just gonna say recording these things is a lot of effort, because it is like getting the whole team in, and it basically kills an entire work day, which means if anyone's behind with work, we can't do it. We need to wait till everyone is kind of in a position where we can do that. So yeah,
it's like it'd probably take like 4 hours at least, which like it's technically work for people, so we can't just take their evenings for that. But all right, that kind of wraps up the last Altacast for the year. Thanks a lot for watching all of our episodes so far. I'm gonna update the playlist because it is very out of date. It's like missing a bunch between 22 and 16 or something. And keep hitting us with your questions in the Q&A link below. We're gonna be able to answer them when we come back from the break. Hope you all have a great holiday season, and stay safe at home, or depending on where you are in the world. Maybe you can see your family, which is great news.
If not, don't forget to call them.
Or don't. Do what you want,
Or don't. Well, I'm just saying. I feel like there's some people out there who might just forget. So you can thank me when you remember now.
Yeah. Yes, some people might be more keen to hear from you than you think.
Feel free to call me as well.
So here's Joel's phone number that I'm just going to give to you right now.
It's going to be across the screen with a jingle in a second.
Yeah. If you call right now, you can get $20 off of your next thing. The next 5 callers are going to get this free bauble from Joel's Christmas tree.
Yeah, they're glass baubles. That's
fancy
expensive
stuff. Yeah. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay, see you next year.